It's not a shock. This race has been set in stone since really the Republicans decided that when Trump was indicted, that they were going to rally around him. That's when this race ended. It could have gone the other way. Republicans could have made the very rational decision that, well, gee, maybe it's not a great idea to have a nominee who has 91 counts against them, but they rallied around Trump. And this is what the party has done, every time that they've had a opportunity to get away from Trump. They don't do it. They don't make the move. They could have done it after January 6th. No. Mitch McConnell wouldn't let other senators vote to convict him, impeach him. And then McConnell went out and gave a speech saying why he should have been impeached. It is a moral collapse of the party, unlike anything I think we've seen probably in American history, but certainly in modern American history.
Yeah, and Stuart, I mean, Just Zelny was saying a few moments ago, well, Ron DeSantis is a young, relatively young man. He has 2028, I suppose, in his sights down the road. There are a lot of other Republican contenders potentially who they might be thinking the same thing. But, Donald Trump was holding a rally in New Hampshire last night where he was saying, wouldn't it essentially be nice to have a strong man here in America like they have over in Hungary with Viktor Orban? So maybe Donald Trump doesn't necessarily see himself not running in 2028 if he becomes president again.
Well, he said that, actually. He's talked about it in 2 terms.
Yeah.
Look, it's a hard thing to sort of admit and say out loud, but this party that I worked in for almost 30 years isn't a traditional American political party anymore. It's become an autocratic movement. That's what it is. And there's really only one pro-democracy party in America, and that's the Democratic Party. And nothing else matters. All this stuff we used to fight about, like what should the capital gains tax be, or any of this stuff, it's just meaningless now. This election really is going to be the most important election, certainly of our lifetime, and probably since 1860. Donald Trump is winning and running away with this because he is what the Republican Party wants to be. He's giving them the most unfiltered, distilled form of what they want, and they want a strong man. And Trump's saying it. And when you read and listen to people who have studied strongmen, they always say one of the aspects is they tell you what they're going to do. It's not a surprise. And that's what Trump's doing, and it's really a character test for the American electorate.
And Stuart, I know that you've basically said this doesn't matter, but I'm going to try to ask this question anyway about tactics and strategy because you helped run Mitt Romney's campaign back in 2012. And there were moments during that campaign where Mitt Romney was on the verge of beating Barack Obama. But putting that to the side, when Nikki Haley at the 11th hour, at the very last moment, starts to question Trump's mental fitness, and for good reason, when Trump the other night was mixing up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, is there a party of you that said, why didn't we hear some of this sooner? When Ron DeSantis does the same thing, going after Donald Trump, do you ask why did he not do this sooner? Or have you resigned yourself to the fact that none of that would have mattered anyway?
Look, I think when you run against somebody, you have to run against them. And just think about how absurd it is that you're running against a candidate who's facing 91 counts. It was never brought up in a debate. I mean, what greater gift could you be given as an opposition candidate? You have someone that a jury in his hometown found him liable for sexual assault that the judge clarified as rape. So that's who's going to be the Republican nominee. And I think if you were going to run against Donald Trump, you have to take the attitude in these debates, one of us is going to walk off the stage alive. It's the only way to do it. You can't get up there with, I'm going to present myself as sort of like diet Trump. And that's what they've all done, except for Christie and for Asa Hutchinson. And they did it, I think, because when they looked at the polls, they said, well, I need to do this. But they weren't going to win. They weren't ever going to win. In many ways, this whole thing was just sort of a kabuki play to see positioning for 4 years from now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why, I'm kind of scratching my head and wondering, because I've covered some campaigns myself, and to see the candidates like Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis going at one another. As a matter of fact, DeSantis goes after Nikki Haley in his exit announcement earlier today while he's endorsing Trump. why go after somebody who you're sort of vying for second place? The race for second place never made any sense.
No. Look, I just think it just shows the terrible position the party's in. It is a Trump party. And whether or not Donald Trump wins or loses in November, I think he's going to lose. I think he's going to lose decisively. But whether or not he does, the die is cast for the foreseeable future. The party is a Trump party with all that it means. This is the party that Putin is hoping will win the election. This is the party that could accelerate the democracy losing the largest ground war since World War II in Europe. It is just unimaginable that the party that once was defined by Ronald Reagan standing in front of the Berlin Wall saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, is now a party that Donald Trump was elected with the help of the Russians, and they're supporting the Russians. And that's what the party is. And no one out there had the ability to try to break Donald Trump. And really, the party could have done this, Going back to when he won the nomination, you remember Mitt Romney gave that speech in spring of 16. Others could have followed him. None of them have. Now you have Tim Scott, which is one of the saddest little spectacles in American politics. Tim Scott endorsing Donald Trump. I mean, it tells you everything you need to know.
Well, and Steve Daines, who is the head of the National Republican Senate Campaign Committee, is also saying that the race is essentially over, that Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee, and that the rest of the party should get behind him. And we haven't even gotten to the New Hampshire primary. Have you ever seen a race like this before for the Republican nomination?
Look, what Donald Trump has been doing for some time in these polls is performing like an incumbent president would perform. It would be like if Joe Biden had been primaried in a serious contest. I did a lot of these races in Iowa. You don't win with north of 50%. Unless you're an incumbent president. And that's his position in the party. I mean, a lot of these people think that he probably still is president. And we know that the majority of them think that Joe Biden isn't a legally elected president. So this election in November is not going to be between two parties with different ideologies, different views of the role of government in our lives. It's going to be about one party that believes it is facing an illegal occupier of the Oval Office. And I don't think that we understand what that means because we've never seen it. And it's going to continue to play out in ways that I think are going to shock all of us.
And how does this end for the GOP coming out of this cycle? I mean, if you're right and Trump loses, what becomes of the party at that point? I can't imagine Trump runs again in 2028.
No, but someone like Ron DeSantis will run and say everything that Trumpism was about was right. He was the wrong messenger in the end. He wasn't the best candidate. That's the only criticism they make of Donald Trump, if you listen to him, that he's really not going to be a great candidate, which is a pretty extraordinary thing considering, he tried to overthrow the government of the United States, and they won't say that. I think pain is the only teacher in politics. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to defeat this Republican Party again and again and again. And eventually it will change, because if it doesn't change, it will not survive. The majority of Americans who are 16 years and under are non-white in this country. We're headed to become a minority-majority country. And this party is not responding to that in a way that will make them a national party. Trump's coalition was 85% white in a country that's 59% white. And that's really all you need to know. Biden's best group was under 25 voters. He won those by 11 points. So the party on some level understands this, which is why they're constantly trying to change the rules of how you vote. They're trying to basically curate an election that is more favorable to them. And you just got to beat this. And that's why I work in the Lincoln Project. There's nothing magical out there. There's no silver bullet. You just have to do the work to defeat Donald Trump and defeat Trumpism. And it's going to continue, I think, probably until 32. I think that's when the best hope Republican Party can have to emerge with a sane governing party again.
All right, Stuart Stevens, Always appreciate your insights. Great to have you on again. Please come back.
Resolute Square.